don't close the borders to Indonesia. And I know you've got some very real concerns, but take them on board and by all means keep feeding them up to your grower organisations and to, politicians and people like that who actually can do it. So in opening, just to the exits, as you're aware of, the toilets out the front here. Just this was an initiative very much of the council, who actually approached by to put this information session on through our Ad Network forum, and particularly like to acknowledge Kathy's help there in pulling this all together and getting it organised as well. So without further ado, Kathy.
Thanks, Al. I'd just like to thank everyone for coming and also thank Guido for partnering with us. It's a very, very important issue. We've been trying to get the word out wherever we can, and it's great to see so many people have attended. I'd like to, the Mayor is coming, he had a meeting this morning, so he's definitely coming. And we've got Councillor Paul Kenshin, and we've got, Councillor Jane Erkins, and Councillor Kirsty Shoemaker, and Michael Hunter is here, and I'd like to thank also Peter O'May from, he's our General Manager of Riverville. He's come along, and he's very much supporting this project. So I think that is, are there any other councillors here or any other representatives from council?
Kathy, just an apology from Benita, she's not well.
Apology from Councillor Dean Potter, and I think also Councillor Gavin Jones is an apology. He's actually had his knees operated on. So just want to also thank John for being here, and he's going to be the main man to tell us what's happening with Foot now. As I said, it's very, very worrying. It's very concerning for everybody. If we think that if it gets into Australia, we're going to be pretty much, in a world of hurt, because agriculture is in our South Valley area. It's what we do. It's our prime industry, and so I just wanted to say that we are taking this very, very seriously, and we're using this opportunity to get the word out. And as Alan said, don't shoot the messenger. John's just here to tell us he's been to Barclay and got all the latest update on what's happening and where we're at with it. I'd like to, thank. Where's Christy? Christy is live streaming, and I think also Aussie Land and Livestock are live streaming as well. So just great to see everyone here, and I'll just hand over to John, or Alan. You're right to hand over to John.
Hello, my name is John Higgins. I'm Inspector of Biosecurity Queensland here at King Roy, Department of Agriculture and Fisheries. I'll just start off with this video. I hope you can hear it. There's only little speakers on the front, but it is online. It's very poignant for the moment because this is fellow Kevin Duff, who was an inspector with us. He's retired now. But he actually went over to England in 2001 outbreak, so it's just his. I'll let him explain it. thing is, as you said, is good biosecurity for yourselves. Control entry and exit, and you are protecting yourself. Get your registrations up to date, and do your NLOs and that sort of thing. So we'll just go through this. This is from I found in 2017. It gives our cattle numbers around the countryside. So this gives our cattle numbers across the countryside. At the moment, I think Queensland has 43% of the cattle herd. So it will be a big responsibility for us, a big hit. That is the breakup of the other states, but then it all just realise that foot mount does affect all global hoof animals. But this is just a cattle herd. That's movements on one day into and out of the major sales on the eastern seaboard. Movements in are the blue to the sales, Townsville, the Cairo, Campton, I think Toowoomba and Roma. The red of the movements out. So you can see how far, right up. Cattle go right up here down the bottom and back here. So there's the movements that we're looking at just one day to the sales. On any particular day, I think there's 40,000 head of cattle moved in Queensland alone. That's the southeast southern sales over 1 week. So we have Dalby, Norton, Loma, Silverdale, Billaway, Toowoomba and Warwick. And as you can see, the red of the movements in and the green of the movements out of those sales. So we've got even 21 consignments coming up from New South Wales into Warwick. But going out, we have to New South Wales 5 from Dalby, 2 from Morton, 13 movements to New South Wales from Roma, 2 from Silverdale, 1 from Billaway, 6 from Toowoomba and 7 from Warwick. But we've also got 2 movements out of there to Victoria. So that's what we're dealing with. That's just movements over 1 week. So it's to highlight the importance of our NLO system. We can pick up movements very quickly with NLOs as long as people report it. And if the quicker we can get on it, the quicker we can start containing this disease. But the current threats we have for Australia: lumpy skin disease, foot and mouth, and African swine fever. Everybody's focusing on foot and mouth, but the biggest worry is lumpy skin disease. And we've got African swine fever in Papua New Guinea, but it's not that far away. They're both pretty devastating. In September 2019, the first occurrence of swine fever in Oceania and Timor-Leste and Papua New Guinea was March 2020. LSD was detected in Singapore and Indonesia in March 2022, and foot and mouth was detected in 2022 in May in the region. But they're the 3 most important diseases that are threatening us right now. The first one, this one I think is a bigger worry. This is lumpy skin disease. It's acute, chronic, it's highly infectious. It's a generalised skin disease in cattle and water buffalo. It's caused by a pox virus. It's mechanically transmitted by biting insects, which could include cattle ticks or other ticks. It causes low motility, however, it can cause production loss and high damage and all that sort of thing. Some other things I found out about it. Its resistance to inactivation in the environment. The viability for this virus, at least 33 days in dried skin lesions. The clinical signs you see are watering eyes, loss of appetite, increased nasal and salivary excretions, reduction in milk production, depression, in large superficial lymph nodes, and within 1 to 2 days of the onset of fever, the skin nodules that you can see there appear. They are about 2 to 5 centimetres in diameter. They develop particularly on the head, neck, limbs, udder, genitalia and perineum. And the lesions can also be found in the mouth, gastrointestinal system, and occasionally resulting in secondary pneumonia. In this disease, those lesions there that are all over this calf, the centre of that is called a sit fast. It will drop out, leaving a gape open wound there. And that sit fast is loaded with virus, so it drops into the environment. That's not the risk. The risk is biting insects, so that's mosquitoes and other things like that. The spread of lumpy skin disease, so we've seen it from 2019, spread throughout Asia in 2022, was detected in Singapore and Indonesia. The good part is at the moment it's in Sumatra, the island of Sumatra. Last figures indicated 3,000 infected animals, but 28,000 have been vaccinated. Now there are 2 vaccines, but neither of them are approved for use in Australia. They have been used successfully in Indonesia to control this disease, but at the moment it's only in that island of Sumatra up here. Though we've got to have a bit of doubt about the figures because they're also got foot and mouth, so that's probably where their major response is going right now. But this one here, the risk rating, from March 21 was 18%. In April 2022, it's gone up to 28% for Australia. So this one has increased. Because it's transmitted by biting insects, now I'll go back. Wind patterns and cyclones have come from here and gone across the top of Australia. We're dealing with Japanese encephalitis. They have found Japanese encephalitis in some wild pigs up in the Northern Territory. And again, that's spread by mosquitoes. So we come to foot and mouth disease. So it is highly contagious. An old vet gave me an example once that if you catch a cold, you've got to breathe in 1,000 virus to take effect on your body. For foot and mouth for a pig, it's 3. That's how contagious it is. It just needs a couple to get in there, and all of a sudden we've got a big problem. It affects all cloven-hoofed animals, including buffalo, pigs, cattle, sheep, deer, camelids and goats. It's capable of extremely rapid spread, and usually by direct contact with infected animals or products. That's why swill feeding is banned. The outbreak in England in 2001 was spread because a fellow went and collected scraps off a plane, didn't cook it properly, and all of a sudden you've got a huge, I think 6 million animals were slaughtered over there to try and control the disease and get on top of it. It was just caused by one bloke who went and got scraps and he fed them to his pigs. He didn't report it, and it was 9 days before they found it, and unfortunately the sheep herds next door had got an aerosol and they'd gone to the sayards and then all over England. Animals appear listless and depressed. They have fever, lameness, reluctance to stand or move around, drooling or excessive salivation, especially in cattle. They have a reduced appetite, fluid-filled blisters or vesicles which break to become open sores between the claws of the cattle, sheep and pigs, on the snout of pigs, teats of cattle, the mouth of all species and including the tongue and hard palate. Reduced production such as decreased milk yield and weight loss, sometimes death in younger animals. Cattle are the best indicator species for the disease. They're very highly susceptible. Sheep do not show a lot of symptoms a lot of the time, and that was one of the issues with the English outbreak because sheep did not show any symptoms, though they caught the disease and they carried it. That's how it got the spread. Right, with this disease, incubation is 2 to 14 days. So if we've got an outbreak, we are tracing all movements into and out of the property for 14 days prior. That's the international standard. They can age those blisters when they appear. I'm not 100% sure, but it's the way they form, break and then slough off. I was talking to a vet that was also over in England, and he said he was going to check a herd that was infected. It was a cattle herd. He grabbed the tongue and he found he had in his hand the skin of the tongue. It had just come off the whole tongue itself, so all that's left was the muscle there. So it's extremely painful for an animal, and larger animals will suffer for quite a while afterwards, and even pigs and that, because you can imagine with pigs and cattle, their toenails will slough off, they'll remove, so they can't walk. That's just it, they just can't walk, they don't want to move. Now, the thing for us is, we don't catch the disease as such, but we can have it in our nasal passages for 12 to 24 hours after we've been in an infected area. So we can still spread the disease ourselves. Last outbreak in Australia was 1872. Now, a proportion of clinically affected cattle and buffaloes and sheep, but not pigs, can be long-term virus carriers after they recover. Cattle can harbour the virus in their pharynx for up to 2¼ years. Sheep can harbour it for 9 months. So they think they can still spread the disease aerosol. The virus excretion commences 1 to 5 days before the appearance of the blisters. So there's 5 days there where they're expelling the virus, but we've got no symptoms or signs. Rightio. This is the spread. I don't know, you can't see it at the back, but that's Bali there. Australia's just down here. It is currently in Bali. We know that. Last figures, they have had 401,000 animals infected, and they've actually vaccinated 550,000 animals over there. The infection is still active, but control measures are in place. As I said, it can be wind-borne. Conditions required for wind-borne spread are high concentration of susceptible species, slow and steady wind and direction, high humidity and weak sunlight. Most wind-borne spread over land is up to 10 kilometres. It spread over water, they think, in 1981 from France to the Isle of Wight, which I think is about 250 k's. Now, this is a thing to listen, the risk rating for foot and mouth, even though it's in Bali, the difference between March 21 was at 9%. In April 2022 for Australia, it's gone up to 12%. So the risk, it's a risk, but the risk hasn't risen that high. The greater risk is swine fever and lumpy skin disease because of the way they can move and the closeness. So that's just something to keep in mind. Our pathways into Australia for lumpy skin, it's most likely the vectors, as you can see, the wind. We've had cyclones come across from Indonesia to Darwin. They can pick up one of these mosquitoes and they can come in. That's the most likely route that they'll come in. Foot and mouth disease, yes, we have people going back and forwards. Yes, we have it in your nasal passages for 24 hours. But the most likely route is someone bringing in contaminated feed. Full stop, feeding that to pigs. That's the most likely route that's going to happen. And that's where, and 90% of all outbreaks have occurred in this way. That someone has gone and fed a contaminated sausage or something to some pigs, and next thing you know, we've got a huge outbreak. Swine fever, again, is the same thing. Someone brings over contaminated feed. The problem we have with swine fever is it's in Papua New Guinea. It's a lot closer, and it can be devastating for the pig industry. You know, so they're the two I'm more worried about than foot and mouth, to tell you the truth. You might have heard the recent finding of those particles of virus in the meat products in Victoria. Yeah, they were part of the normal surveillance that the Department of Agriculture, whatever they are federally, that's part of their normal surveillance. They do go and pick up and follow up on some products coming into Australia. It was only a part of the virus that they found. But just to be safe, they seized those whole consignments and they destroyed them. So they are, you know, we've got our border controls, which is people coming in, the warning of that. And we also have the requirements for importation, and they also go and check them from time to time. So that was, as I said, part of the normal thing, and that was from China. Not from Bali, Indonesia, or anywhere else. That was from China, those products. Right, yeah, so what we've got is there is planning going on all the time. They would both disrupt our whole system of trade and the economy. The response will focus on containment and eradication. Any other decision will be made at the National Management Group level. Our supply chains will immediately be stopped, and market access will be impacted over the state and the country. And I said potentially economic impact. So they've got the planning is in the final stages of drafting for lumpy skin disease. The policy is to eradicate in the shortest possible time. They will be considering regional blanket vaccinations, stamping out movement controls and buffer zones. But as I said, no vaccine is currently registered in Australia. I understand that the Centre for Disease Preparedness down in Geelong finally has permission to import live virus to start developing a vaccine for Australia. The vaccines are not registered, so that will be, if it happens, would be a rush job. There's two types of vaccines that are being used overseas with various effectiveness. Foot and mouth. The policy is to eradicate in the shortest possible time. It will require humane destruction of all cloven-hoofed animals in the restricted area. There will be the control and movement of livestock will also be essential. Vaccination may be an important consideration of any response, but the problem with a vaccination is there is no way to distinguish a vaccinated animal from an animal that's infected. So to get our freedom, every one of those vaccinated animals will have to be dead. So we will not get any freedom prior to that occurring. So that is, so vaccination will be something that will be very seriously considered. Australia does have a bank of vaccines over in England that we pay a company to keep up to date. Foot and mouth has different strains, so we've got to know the strain first before we can start importing the vaccine that we need. But we do have a bank over there, and they can be imported pretty quickly if we go down that route. As I said, it'd be more a containment option. My guess is we would go out a certain distance from the outbreak and then vaccinate in. But just keep in mind that eventually all of those animals will have to be slaughtered. Rightio, what we're doing, we've got awareness, prevention and preparedness activities, so we're response ready. Biosecurity Queensland is the lead agency for an emergency response in animal diseases, but it will require a cast of thousands, you know, if it happens. So we'll be pulling people from everywhere and anywhere we can. We have national action plans. We have livestock industry preparedness task force that is also going through these diseases. We have our Biosecurity Act with the emergency response. Under that, I as an inspector can restrict the place for 72 hours, I think it is. After that, we've got to notify the minister, and then movement controls and everything will be brought in for the state. But straight up, if I spot a disease, I can immediately stop movements on and off that property. We have AusVet Plan. Now that's a huge document. It's got industry manuals, it's got how you run a control centre. It also has disease information, and it also has how we can disinfect and everything for it. It is a huge document that will be used. And this has been worked out by a lot of experts over a long period of time. We have the emergency animal disease response, whatever it is, I'm not 100% sure, but which has strategies and cost share arrangements. Foot and mouth is a category 3 disease, I think, which is 80% government response, 20% industry costs. Again, as I said, we've got the vaccines. Australia contributes to the foot and mouth vaccine bank, and Queensland itself has sent money down to Geelong for development of the lumpy skin disease vaccines. We have BQ, DAF and a lumpy skin disease preparedness technical working group going right now. We've had a working group for swine fever for quite a while. They're developing policies and strategies. Our labs are getting boosted, so there's an increased diagnostic capability so we can recognise it quicker. But if the disease is found, it goes to our lab, and if they think it's foot and mouth, that will be immediately sent down to Geelong for proof testing. And then we'll get everything out of there, and it's pretty quick. With Japanese encephalitis, we're getting results back in 24 hours. We have enhanced surveillance systems, and we're also ourselves are going and having training. In the last 2 weeks, myself and a colleague went out to Blackall and we did entry and exit training coming on and off a property. So we are working towards it, we're getting things done. The surveillance systems, apparently they're developing kits that we can have, that we can, if we suspect samples, we can get the samples, get them collected correctly and get them into the lab as soon as. The AusVet plan has just been reviewed and updated for foot and mouth disease, so it's as up to date as it can be. There you go. EADRA is the Emergency Animal Disease Response Agreement, which is between Animal Health Australia, governments and peak industry bodies, so that's where the cost sharing comes in. Each disease is rated and there is a cost sharing. Something with high human health will be 100% funded by government. Something like foot and mouth that is a real concern to the economy will be 80% funded by government, as I said, and 20% by industry. We have expert veterinary group that's under EADRA. They're set up with that, who report to the National Management Group, which is ministers from all states and their chief veterinary officers. And as I said earlier, Queensland has invested money into the lumpy skin disease vaccine. So we've got, what are we doing? Surveillance. So we're trying to promote awareness. That's why I'm here standing up in front of everybody. The laboratory, as I said, they've increased the funding for our labs, so we can get faster processing and more accurate tests developed. Sampling kits will be coming out to all of us, as I said, and part of the strategy, they have the Northern Australia quarantine strategy, which goes out and regularly samples feral animals across the top of Australia for these sorts of diseases. So they're monitoring up there all the time. And we do have targeted surveillance activities across the north of Queensland. We're also currently working in a shoot and let lie to see if worse comes to worse and we do need to, feral pigs will be a problem. If we shoot them and just leave them where they are, if we can't get back to them to burn them, how long the disease might last in them. So there is work going on continually about it. We're hoping that the normal decomposition in Australia with the heat and everything will kill the virus fairly quickly, but we're doing a check of that. We also have our communication and engagement, which is which they call the e-hub. It's on our website under DAF. You can go in there and get all the latest information and other things in there about these diseases. They're trying to direct everybody to go to there and again, doing these talks as well. So they have the diseases listed and brief information about them all. We have, in Queensland, we have the Livestock Industry Preparedness Task Force, which is a response to lumpy skin and foot and mouth in the region. It includes level of government, key industry enterprises from the livestock industry supply chain and peak bodies. So again, they're not just sitting on their hands. They are focusing on North Australia, because that's where the problem could be. And we're also collaborating with the Northern Territory, Western Australia, to work together to try and control this. This is what you can do. The best information we got is your details, contact details, so we can get in touch with people quickly and efficiently. So, just make sure you're all up to date. And NLIS transfers. That is the most important thing. That will allow us to get on top of all movements quickly. Though in the event of an outbreak, tracing will have to be done on everything that goes in and out of a property. That includes people, machinery, and anything else 14 days prior to the event. And in the end, to get freedom, we've got to tick off all of those and we follow them up. So NLIS gives us a quick and easy way to try and find out all movements. If it turns in Victoria, there will be a whole stock standstill over Australia, but if we've had no movements up from Victoria, well and good, we might be okay to continue work, under certain controls. But that's the only way we're going to know that NLIS, if it's come up, and it takes time then to do the follow-up. If we don't, people aren't up to date. It's just been agreed that sheep and goats will have an electronic identifier. That'll probably take a couple of years to develop and bring in, but that is in the system now. The other thing is update your biosecurity plan. The idea is come clean, go clean. Someone like myself comes up to your place. Where have I been before I came there? Are my boots clean? Foot and mouth can spread on organic matter that's stuck to your boots, but it doesn't last that long here because of the heat and humidity. But it's a risk. So, the simple thing is, if you go into a place, scrub your boots. Your place, you have people accessing your house, your shed, your yards. That's your normal access points. So they're your risk areas. That's where you limit movements. To go out of those areas, you make sure that we are safe to do that. If I come onto your place, you want me to go look at an animal out in the back paddock or your vet, where's he been with that vehicle beforehand? What's he done? Has he got clean boots? Just make sure of that sort of stuff. It's have your plan in place and how you go about looking after yourselves. Has someone been overseas recently? If so, don't let them near animals for a couple of days. You have a responsibility as well, and that's what we want you to be aware of. Just, control your movements on your place, look after yourself, make sure that someone like me has clean shoes, that we haven't been to a place overseas in the last 3 days. How's our vehicle? Have we been, if I drive in the yards, I'm not too worried because everybody does that. You've got transports, you've got agents, you've got trucks, but once you go off that beaten track, what did I do the last time I went off the beaten track? Did I go and put my vehicle through a car wash? It's not a lot, but it's better than, it's probably the best I can do. But did I do that? That's the questions you need to be asking us when we're coming and going on your place. As I said, the yards are normal transport. You have people coming and going from there. But it's outside those areas, into your paddocks. We are talking to Ergon and the other power companies. They are aware of the situation. They try and do the right thing, but if there's an emergency, it tops everything. They'll grab vehicles from wherever and whenever they can to get the job done. But they are aware of the situation, and we have been talking to them. So, yeah. As I said, these are your risks. International travels from the last 7 days. Clean shoes, clean clothes. And if they have been overseas, don't let them get in contact with your animals. Have quarantine paddocks, or keep the cattle in your yard when you bring any animals in for at least 14 days. That allows the gut to, all the weeds to travel through. And also 14 days is the usual incubation for most diseases. So keep them separate for 14 days before you let them into your stock. Keep your paperwork. You have your vendor deck, and you also have a National Animal Health Declaration that you can use. Use that. Vaccines, what have they done? It's again, it starts with you. It's your biosecurity. It's your place. Surveillance. Check your animals regularly. Have a look at them. And if you do see anything, report immediately. At the end, there'll be the animal disease hotline, but that's where you can call up, and we always have a vet with a phone 24 hours a day who can answer those questions. And if not, it goes nationally. It's a nationally recognised number. So foot and mouth will only survive for extended periods in organic matter, faeces, mucus. The basic hygiene will suffice because it removes the organic matter. That is the main thing. Clean. Come clean, go clean. As I said, they are contacting and engaging with the utility companies and others about biosecurity and how to, so they're doing the right thing. The main thing is, as I said, swell feeding is banned in Australia, and it has been for a long time, and this is where the vast majority of foot and mouth outbreaks have occurred. Has been because someone has bought in contaminated product and fed it to an animal, and next you know there's a problem. As I said, it can spread far and fast, and unfortunately all cloven hoofed animals in the infected area will have to be put down, will be euthanized. So that is a given. Stamping out. So, but it's not here. As I said earlier, the risk profile is very low still for foot and mouth. The higher risk is lumpy skin and swine fever because they're closer, or lumpy skin can be brought in by vectors. So they're the bigger worry than foot and mouth at the moment. But as I said, the main thing is you protect yourselves. Get your biosecurity plans up to date. Make sure we're all clean coming in and out of your place. I said there's the emergency animal disease hotline. So if you can call that if you have an issue, you'll be immediately talking to one of our vets. And that is the best thing you can have next to the phone. So that's it for me at the moment. So if you want to start asking questions.
So, John, I've got the microphone over here. I'll ask the first one, if that's okay. I just want to know what happens if it gets into feral pigs and feral deer. How will our biosecurity plans measure up if it's in the feral animals?
As I said earlier on, the feral animal, before vesicles appear, they are spreading the disease. They can move around. But once they start showing symptoms, they're in that much pain, they're not moving. And that can go for a couple of weeks because they will lose their toenails. So they've got nothing to walk on. So they're not going to be moving at all. It is extremely painful. As I said, that's why they don't eat. The vet, he pulled the whole tongue off the skin, So that's what's occurring. The epithelium is being removed in those areas. And it's just painful that they won't be moving. So they're not really an issue. And as I said, once pigs get over it, it doesn't appear that they hold the virus in their system. But while they've got it, they are magnificent factories for foot and mouth.
Is there any education done? I mean, we all probably producers, I think of the hobby farmers who've got a pig, a sheep, a cow or something. They're the ones that's getting most.
Yeah, the Biosecurity Act requires everybody with one animal to be registered with us, one or more. So, unfortunately, we try to get to them, keep on top of them, but unless they know about it and we know about them, we can't keep up with it. But once we know, we certainly get onto them and get them to register. The main thing is our information. If we got it there, we can get out and we can get it. We can find out what's what and where pretty quickly. Yeah, I think
John, thank you, Scott Ancient. Just a question that's been identified in Indonesia, Bali for some months now, and we talk about the catastrophe in the event of it coming here. How many and much livestock has been destroyed in Bali / Indonesia?
Well, what was the figure? I gave you 450,000 infected. That's probably 450,000 dead.
Yeah, and how many, what's their livestock total in those countries?
I've got no idea, I'm afraid, but that was the figure I got off. If you a couple of weeks ago, there was a forum on site. I think the South Burnett Grazing Network gave links to it, and it was the federal minister and a couple of other people from AL and that sort of jazz, and that's where I got those figures. So it was a bloke that had just been over there.
Yeah, thanks, John. Just and quickly, you mentioned before that to staff something like this, if it gets into our wonderful country, when everybody's having trouble staffing anything at the moment. And I asked this question at Corbyn, and you would have heard me probably say it, John. There's a lack to want to cease travel or suspend travel, which would be a relatively quick fix, temporary quick fix, but the question about biosecurity, and I know what you will say in relation to governments working with governments, we're sending quite a big bucket of money over there now. Would it be fair comment to say or ask, would biosecurity send officers over to Indonesia to nip it in the bud there before it gets to here? Rather than have to find thousands of staff here, perhaps you could put 20 or 60 or minimal over there to help Indonesia.
Well, really, put it this way, Indonesia's its own country, they've got to ask. We just can't send people over there, but the federal government has sent federal officers over there to help train. They've provided 1 million vaccines and they've provided money to them to help them get on top of it. So that's a good figure, 550,000 vaccinated, still a lot to do, but if they're ringing the problem, it's decreasing our issues. But, you're saying staff. That fellow there, Kev Duff, he was in one centre in England that he was working at, had 6,000 staff. Another fellow that I know, Murray Wingett, he was also over there. There was 5,000 people in his control centre that he was working at. So it takes a lot of people to get on top of this and get the job done. So, but if you think the economy will be tanked, I mean, we'll be asking you fellas as well. There's not enough of us to do the job. I mean, we'll probably be buggered in the first week. But it's a simple case of we'll be bringing people in as soon as we can. They have agreements overseas to supply vets. The call will go out, like England did. They have people from Australia go over there, South Africa. There are a lot of countries that chipped in and helped them. So, there is that coming in behind.
Yeah, John, just that NLIS transfers.
Yeah.
You know as well as I do that a lot of that never gets done.
The majority.
And now, John, just hang on. I've rang the DPI up a couple of times about this. I've rang them up about cattle getting shifted without vendor steps. I've been the one to go and see these people. I've rang the DPI. They've never been out there. I was the one who was going to get shot because I was on their place and there was no need to be there. So why isn't the department going when I've notified the department that this is happening? These cattle sheep horses are getting moved around all over the place with no vendor step, and they've told me that they're not doing it. No one in the way tags in their cattle at all, and they're getting moved.
Yeah, well, all I can say is we can only know we can do what we know about. Well, just let me answer, please. we can only do what we know about. There's only 3 of us in Kingaroy. We have a fair area to travel. We have other jobs that we have to do. We are relying on people's honesty to get things done. And if we do find out about it, we try and get to them and talk to them. It's not a simple case we just let it go, but it just depends what other work we got on at the time. It is.
Have you been out there to the place?
Well, I don't know what place you're talking about, but I probably haven't.
You do know, John, because I've rangers up there in Colchester, and no one's been there to this day. I know they haven't been.
Yeah. Well, as I said, we have other jobs. We try and do what we can do. I'm not going to say anything else.
So you're just happy with these people to do exactly what they're doing?
We try to get to these people and we talk to them if we can, but as I said, we have limited staff. We can only do what we can do.
I have limited time too, John, but I don't even put up with these, and their animals are getting into my place anyway. Their goats, their horses, and no, that's not out there. That's their goats. They've got goats, they've got sheep, they've got horses, and their cattle, and they're constantly in the right place. Now those cattle that no relevance tax, they're moving those cattle around all the time. They're picking up calves. Little body calves from dairy farmers, and they're moving them to their place with no transfers, no else tax in their years. Yep. So there's no traceability on any of it, and they wouldn't even be registered for biosecurity or anything.
Well, as I said, the requirement is they are. We do have we're developing a plan or program to penalise people who don't register. That's got to be talked through at all levels. We can do what we can do, but the other thing is, what have you done with those animals? You tipped them back over the fence, didn't you?
No, actually I rang Jerry and told him there one stage, and told him that I had these here, and to get them into the yards. I had them in the yards. By the time I told Kerry I had them in the yards, because there's no service where those yards are. By the time I got there, those people knew I had them in the yards, they'd been there.
Well, see, we can, again, that's the right thing to do, get them impounded. I mean, make the people have a penalty. But,
I tried that, but I said there's no service there where I was.
Yeah.
And I did bring Kerry, Kerry can recall that.
Yeah, but as I said, it's all we can do. I mean, we are limited, we have limited funds, we have a lot of jobs we've got to try and get across, and unfortunately we're spread too thin, so we're doing the best we can with what we have. And that's the only offer I can give you, and we try to get out to people, we try to talk to them, because we know how important it is.
Hi, we're on adjoining properties, and we've just had problems with Ergon totally disregarding our biosecurity. They've gone into Joe's place, and he's refused them entry to check the poles. And we went home and they come through our place, right through our paddocks, right through our animals, and it's not on. They're not listening and they're not cleaning their vehicles, and they're going to spread it faster than anyone.
It is a risk. As I said, we are talking to them. They are aware of the situation. But again, they have also legislation that allows them to do that sort of thing. So,
Without livelihoods.
Yeah, I can't really answer that one, but it's...
Security plan, I don't want people on there. What can I do when I'm not there? I'm like, people just drive in. I've got gates locked up the back there now, but the main entry, but Ergon comes straight past my shed, open gates, and away they go, and I wasn't even there, I was outside.
As I said, all I can say is the department is talking to those people. Ergon is aware, but we can only do, they have a legislative requirement to do their job, and they will do their job. We can just hope we can keep educating to do the job properly.
John, I was just wondering, what's your sense of the potential for African swine fever coming through from Papua New Guinea, bearing in mind that Papua New Guinea share a common border also with Indonesia, and the closest Queensland island to the Papua New Guinea mainland is about 5 nautical miles away. Can an animal swim across, for example, and get it into our feral population?
No, the animals don't. Swimming across is out of it, but what you do have, you have an inter-island trade that is the risk. And again, we've had officers up there in the national quarantine department, whatever they are talking to those people up there to try and educate. But there is, there is trade going on between tribes people that have always happened. And it is a risk. Again, that's why they're doing the surveillance along the top end as well. But the hope is that there's a lot of distance there. It's not going to be the risk until it starts hitting the more populated areas. So there's less a risk, but it's still a major risk for us.
This conversation I've heard, and I've been to thousands of these meetings, about Bovoniani's disease or Mills tags, and it seems to end up the same way. We get whatever thrust on us. But, now, I heard a comment about the blockies before. I'm not a blockie, but I do know some have got animals, and they guard them with their life. Now, if you've got a 2,000 or 3,000 acre property, it's a lot harder to look after at times. We've got to look at ourselves, people. We've got to look at ourselves. We're the ones that are in control of our animals. And government wants to do it too. Now, the incursion of we heard the other day of the sausage and muffin, the incursion in Victoria of whatever was found in the Chinese
pork product, I'm not sure.
Yeah, pork products, yes. They're the sort of things we should be doing. So born on the radio there, I don't know anything about putting out disease. She can't put me out of Melbourne. That speaks volumes. But, so we've got to be, I have an unfenced property. How do I stop people actually driving through? And they can come there with their sausage that they bought at the deli in Brisbane, and it can be loaded with the stuff. So really our biosecurity has got to be upgraded. And there's another question I'll ask, I'll get it all over in one hit. If this gets here, which we hope it doesn't, because we know how much it's going to affect right across the board. It's going to affect livestock carriers, meat workers, right across the board. Shops, restaurants. You've been there, you know what it is, yeah. Now, I heard a bit of a talk about that, compensation. If it gets down to that bad situation, do we get compensation?
Compensation will be provided to those directly affected. So if you've got to slaughter your animals, there will be compensation. Now, the way I understand how it works is, it's market value. So the first person will get the market value at that time, the 10th person will get the market value at that time, which will be tanked. But I understand that behind that there is top-up that is available for when you start buying animals back.
And what is the rule in too, John, that now, a friend and I were talking about this the other day, and he said he'll vaccinate no matter what. He'll vaccinate his breeders no matter what, because he's spent a lot of time establishing that breeding herd, as a lot of us have. But when you vaccinate, you're considered a dirty herd.
No, to get our freedom back, because there's no way that testing can determine if an animal has an infection from naturally picked it up or from vaccination. There's no way to determine the difference. So to get our freedom back, total freedom for foot and mouth, and receive our trading status again, those animals will have to die. They will have to be put down. So the way I understand it will probably work is, they'll start at the distance out and they'll vaccinate in, but every animal in that area will eventually have to be slaughtered, put down, whatever, before Australia can gain total freedom for foot and mouth again.
So, how about vaccinating states like, I believe,
if we started...
Now, you walk around in the cold winter climates, is that right? So Victoria, Southern New South
Yeah.
Wales. And we're going to say,
that will be determined, like I said, we've got a whole system there. The National Management Group are the ones in charge of it. Queensland doesn't, if it ended up here, we'd put up a plan that would have to be agreed at that level because funding is attached to it. If vaccination is part of it, that will be determined at that level. But we cannot start prophylactic vaccination early because all our training partners will immediately say, you're vaccinating, you must have foot and mouth, so, there goes your markets. So that's why they will not bring that up and they will not do it. We've just got to trust that our border controls. I heard the other day that Australia is the only one that has those warnings up that do the checking for products and all that sort of jazz. You know, a lot of countries you enter, I haven't been overseas, I'm an ignorant sod. So, but they tell me that we're the only ones that have those procedures and processes for entering the country. And just think of this, foot and mouth's been in a lot of countries over a hell of a lot of years and we haven't got it yet. You know, when it was in England, it was blowing up. We had foot bars at the airport for anybody from England. But what about those other countries? I mean, the Australian cricket team, I understand, was in Zimbabwe at the time which had an outbreak. No one worried about that one. So, you know, we've got to trust our controls are the best we can do. It is always a risk. It's going to be a risk forever and ever. The only reason we've got a issue right now is because it's in barley. You know, it's always in Argentina, Brazil, a lot of other countries, but we don't stop trade from them. So, no.
John, just a question from the live stream here, which you've partially already answered. If a vaccinated for FMD animal, but disease-free has to be slaughtered, is that via on-farm disposal, i.e. mass disposal, or can they be abattoir killed? Please explain better what happens to those vaccinated in the containment zone that don't get it. Thank you.
Okay. Because it's an aerosol, an area will be determined depending on the weather factors at the time. As I said, mainly 10 k's over land is the most they've found so far that disease can spread by aerosol. So they will have an area, we will have an area that will be the infected zone, starting with the property in the middle that was the first case. But that might not have been the first case. That might not be the index case. It could be another place. So we've got to try and find that. That's why tracing is so important. So all the animals in those areas will be slaughtered. So that's it. But it depends on what's agreed nationally, whether the vaccinated animals are slaughtered over a short period of time or a longer period of time. That will be a national agreement how that happens. It could take 5 years. But animals, we don't catch foot and mouth by eating it. You know, heating meat kills it. It's not an effect on the human that way. So we can eat the meat, that's no problem. So they can be slaughtered out, but it just depends what the agreement is nationally. Yeah? The animals in a certain area, depending on what how they determine the disease came in, that's still part of the process at the moment is containment and eradication. Sorry? Yeah, that's the current national policy, containment and eradication.
Are there any other questions?
John, quick question. Can a bovine have foot and mouth disease and lumpy skin disease at the same time? Two different diseases, entirely possible. One's vector driven, and once they got foot and mouth, their immune system's challenged. They're open to anything. You know, that's the problem. As I said, it's down the gullet. Pneumonia is a secondary thing. You know, just because of the effect on the lungs and that sort of thing. So, and that's usually what causes the death with lumpy skin. The poor animal suffers, doesn't move, but they have these open wounds on their body. So you can have fly strike come in.
So you said that 550,000 head have been vaccinated or something like that in Indonesia.
Yeah.
Will they be slaughtered, all those cows?
It's Indonesia's policy, whatever they determine they're going to do, where they live with it. Okay. You know, it depends on the financial resources of the country, but we're providing as much as we can. If we can do a ring and get all of those feedlots and everything vaccinated, it makes us a lot safer. It increases the distance from the actual disease focal point.
Okay, and in Australia, if you're going to have to slaughter your cow that's been vaccinated anyway, what was the point of vaccinating?
The point of vaccination is to try and get ahead of it. As I said, you look at it, okay, go back to England. The first fellow was up in the north of the country, right? He fed his pigs that swell. He didn't tell anybody
The only reason they found him was he sent pigs to an abattoir across the country, and a vet picked it up and found it. That was 9 days after his first symptoms appeared. The sheep around the place went to a sale in the north of England, and what do people do when they check sheep? They mouth them, they go from pen to pen, so next thing you know you've got a whole yard full of, that's how simple it spread. So sheep all down that yard, possibly infected. They went to all parts of England, as well as to another sale, and then they were further dispersed from there again with people mouthing the sheep to check them out. So by the time they got on top of it, they had about 7, 8 counties that were going to fall over. That's just because, 9 days, that's all it took to affect the whole England. There's 6 million head were slaughtered over there. Well, no, we're not going to come and shoot them. It will be agreed time period, but a vaccinated animal will eventually have to be slaughtered. Yep. Yeah. The vaccination is to try and contain the disease. I mean, as I said, 10 Ks is a lot of country depending on where you're at. So if they can get a ring out, say 100 Ks and start vaccinating in, there's fewer cattle or sheep, goats, pigs in the middle that are going to be the issue. And it protects the rest of that area. But that will be a decision made by the Chief Veterinary Officer whether we're going to use vaccination or whether we're just going to go stamping out and a infected area, restricted area, control zone. The control zone will probably be the whole of Queensland. So.
John, I'm just sort of wondering, I haven't heard anything about the cruise ship industry. We've heard about, airports and increased security. There's a lot of 7-day trips. You jump on in Brisbane, you go up to New Guinea, you do island hopping and you're back in 7 days. Or you fly to Singapore, do all the, Kuala Lumpur, Bali, and back to Perth. Is there any partnerships with the tourist industry, education, restriction?
I think that'd be part of the normal quarantine process that they do. I mean, if they're starting from here, they've got Australian produce on probably for the whole trip. The way I understand it works, but that'd be part of the normal quarantine because they've still got to go into quarantine. They've got to go through quarantine to get into the ship, and then they've got to come out through quarantine to come off the ship.
Yeah, my experience is quarantine is non-existent. You get your little green form, you walk out, you hand it into your customs, and you pick up your board and away you go. And I know in 2015 we've been in South Africa, in game reserves, etc. We filled out all our stuff, we got back to Sydney Airport and expected, because we declared everything, to be pulled aside. Paid through, jump on your next plane back to Brisbane. I would hope that the tourist industry has picked up their game, and I would hope that the inspectors, the vital inspectors at the airports and cruise ship terminals have picked up their game.
Yeah, well, I'd assume so, just because of the risk, but yeah, but that is part of quarantine.
Yeah, what about, when sell your cattle to the big works or whatever, so you can tell them they're at foot and mouth, so you're going to get less money, obviously. Yes, no?
Yeah, well,
then who's going to want it?
How do you mean it? If you've got foot and mouth, your animals won't be moving anywhere. That's it. If you're vaccinated, it would depend on what the movement controls are for that period of time.
Yeah, right.
But if you're in an infected zone or restricted zone, you're not going anywhere. I'm sorry, but that's it.
Yeah. Right.
If it was found, immediately put on the stock standstill. That doesn't mean everything just stops. Cattle close to their destination will be allowed to go to their destination. Cattle close to home will be asked to go back home, or sheep, whatever's on the move. But within 24 hours, we hope all movement will stop.
Yeah, right. And say we do get it, or somewhere that I get it, or whatever, you circle your cattle or whatever, how long before you can replace them?
Off the top of my head, I don't know, but there is a process. No, everything's got to be decontaminated. depending on how your yards are and that sort of thing.
Yep.
So it's all about, there is a whole process. Unfortunately, destruction is just one part of it. Then there's disposal and decontamination of the area. And then we have a process after that where stock are introduced and checked. And if they come up negative, then it's you can bring on more. I think that's how it goes.
There's sort of no time frame.
I can't, off the top of my head, I can't give you a time frame, but if you want to go and, it said the AusVet plan would probably have it in there. If you went and looked up foot and mouth, what the processes are, but it's a full, they've, you know, it's all been planned out. So, but unfortunately, it'll be major if it does happen, but it's all been planned out, so you will have a time where you are surveyed after the animals, there's a period after the animals are destroyed, and then there'd probably be a sentinel herd brought in or sentinel animals brought in to see what's happening.
Thank you.
Thank you, thanks John. This is not a loaded question, but can I, and I've asked this before, in this room, how many people have been to Bali? Could you put a hand up? And the only purpose of that is because it's been in the media about if you've been on a farm in Bali, and those people that have been in Bali know very well you don't have to go to a farm to get foot and mouth. And I guess what I'm getting at is Brisbane is 6 hours 30 in a plane flight, Darwin is 3 hours 20. That's how close it is to us. And I was asked that question, how could it survive? How am I going to get back from Bali? I've been to Bali, yes. How would it get back and get back onto my property? I can get from Bali back to Brisbane, back to my place in under 12 hours. But that's just a statement more than anything, so it's just how close it is.
Yeah, that's it said. It can be in your nasal passages for 24 hours. So the thing is, you know, again, if you've done that, hopefully you don't go near animals for at least 3-4 days. Your boots you took over. I mean, yeah, my sister just rang me because her daughter went over and, you know, she was in a panic, what do I do? You know, get all the shoes you took, scrub the bottom of them, disinfect them, put them out in the sunlight, wash your clothes, put them out in the sunlight, blow your nose a few times, have a shower, all the clothes you took over, wash them and hang them out. I mean, and don't go near animals for 4 or 5 days. You know, you've done everything you can. But it's, you know, a lot of people go...
You're right, exactly what you... And everyone in this room will probably do that, but how many people are flying over here that are in the city that have not got one idea of...
I understand that...
Or LSD, like they've got no idea. Like, and this is where the airlines and Mark was saying airlines and all that, they should be up there saying, hang on, you can't... The fellow in the ABC the other day, he flew over from Bali 10 days ago, or 5 days ago, he was in the ABC. He didn't even have to put his feet on the mat. He just...
Well, what's the point of putting your feet on the mat with other shoes you were wearing over there? Or are they packed in your luggage? I mean, we've got to be realistic about that. This thing about putting them on the mat is a feel-good thing. I mean, it's up to people's honesty, and I understand, again, it's just what I've read myself, but I understand the federal government is putting on the planes biosecurity inspectors. The airlines are putting out information on the screens there for people coming in, and then you've got to come through quarantine. I mean, it's the best we can do for what we've got, but this thing about foot baths, yeah, it's all well and good now, but what with the shoes you were wearing over there at the time, if they're in your luggage and they've got organic matter on them, they're the risk. So that's where we've got to try and get to people, you know, cleanliness. As I said, come clean, go clean.
They're at risk for how long they're in port?
Well, it requires high humidity and cooler weather, so when it comes back here, you know, how long's a piece of string? I don't know off the top of my head there, but I mean, it's not going to last that long once it hits the hot summer days and that sort of thing, but at the moment we're cooler, so it can last a bit longer. Hang on. Sorry. Thought that wouldn't work.
I have a question. Just here, thank you.
Sorry.
I'm thinking about all the industries that rely on cattle movement, like our livestock agents, our livestock carriers, our providers of services to our farms. In the AusVet plan. Like, if this was to come and hit our region, it would be catastrophic, I'm not denying that, but there would be many people who would no longer have an income. And I'm wondering in the AusVet plan and the discussions that I had, if there is like a package or something around how we're actually going to support if this does happen, because I think what we saw in COVID is that those packages, that support has to come very quickly.
If it hit it here, as I said, we're the lead agency, but there's, we're only a small organisation. The disaster management situation will be brought in. I asked that question the other day at a conference, and there's no guarantee, but if the disaster management is brought in, that includes different levels of government with different decisions. And as you saw when floods or fires, something does happen. But that is a different. All I can say is what AusVet plan is and what the compensation is for that. So that anybody directly affected does have compensation under AusVet plan, but for the rest of it, as I said, disaster management situations that normally apply for flood, fires and everything else will kick in.
So that the vaccine, is it up to us to pay you guys to come and do it?
No.
Or we get the vaccine and we do it, or who's actually going to vaccinate?
If it comes in, if it's like that, I would say we would have people going around to the areas to vaccinate.
At our expense?
No, well, if it's a control measure required by the plan, I would say that would be state or federal cost. But don't forget, in the end, industry is going to pay 20% of these costs. How you pay it, I don't know, but the government is funding 80% of it. But that will happen, industry payment back to government will happen over a period of time. Government will be funding it straight up.
I've got a question on our live stream here. A cattle will obviously destroyed the same way as foot and mouth disease.
Yep. Yeah. It's the disposal that's the thing, like we've got to try and work that out. Depends on the area, there's a lot of other things involved, but I understand that it will be slaughter at site if they've got the disease. So then disposal will be determined. If there's a high water table here, we can't dispose of them there. If there's not enough firewood, we can't burn them. So, but yeah.
So are there any more questions?
Should it be required that owners of the property are smoothly? What's the process when you said that the property would then be decontaminated? What is actually the process?
Well, it depends. Anywhere your animals could have been, your yards or things like that, would have to be decontaminated. So if your yards are very old, and it could be part of it might be determined we can't clean them up, we'll have to knock them down. It just depends on the state of things and where your animals have been. But obviously those yards, because we'll need to use them, will have been a possible contamination site, so that will have to be decontaminated as best we can. That's sunlight and that sort of thing. It's not going to last in the direct sunlight. It's just saliva and that sort of thing would be more prevalent in the yards. Like in England, they had to clean their whole barns. I mean, and if they couldn't clean them out, they were destroyed. So, and then that's part of the compensation package.
Just another question from the stream here, John. You said before that people that are in an area, can't see what texting slides. You said before that people that are in the area will be compensated if there is an FMD. What about the transport company? Will they be compensated as well?
It said those directly affected will be compensated. Transport companies, that will have to be worked. That's outside the scope of the AusVet plan. That's more a whole government thing. And I said disaster management teams will kick in, and that will be a decision made outside of my area.
I'm talking about deer and feral pigs. How long after they come in contact with the foot and mouth are they likely to get disease, and so they tell here? Because they can go a fair way.
Yep. Yeah, hang on, I'll just find it. My notes here. Okay, so I think I said vesicles can appear up 1 to 5 days after infection, but incubation is 2 to 14 days, but usually 2 to 8 days. So in that period, yeah, they can go a long way. That's the worry. But once they're sore, they're not moving. Once those lesions have appeared, they're in a hell of a lot of pain. So they're not going to be moving.
They're fit and ready.
They can go a fair way. Yeah, I think tracking, they tracked one boar that went up to 30 k's in a night up north.
Deer can go just as well too.
Deer can go just as well. Yeah, I did read something about deer, but I probably, yeah, off the top of my head I'll be giving you the wrong information, but yeah. Deer can, they're cloven hoofed animal, they can spread it. But I don't think they're as bad as pigs or sheep.
My question is for the councillors in the room. With regards to the pigs and the deer, council does have some eradication programs. Are you going to expand any of those more?
Well, I just hand over to Jim Warlock because he did want to talk about the training, so I'll just hand over to Jim.
Thanks for the question. The council has got a coordinated campaign using 1080 coming up in September from the 19th to the 26th, and as part of that we're encouraging people to participate because we realise that feral animals such as feral pigs will be a key vector of spread, and it's uncontrolled pigs. Feral pigs don't take any notice of lockdowns, stand downs or signs. They'll just go where they want. The other important thing is to encourage participation and make it easy for landholders. Is council will be providing free meat, cut to size. So we encourage everyone to come on board, and to think with feral pigs, you've got to wipe out 70% of the breeding population each year, so they don't regenerate back to current numbers. We can have 2 litters a year, especially in these beautiful conditions we're having now. I don't know if any of you have really, we're getting a lot more reports of feral pigs in the area. A lot of the rain, a lot of crops haven't been able to be harvested in the southern part of the Shire. You've got a lot of standing sorghum, a lot of standing corn and maize. Great food for feral pigs. So we're getting a lot of reports. So this coordinated campaign is very timely, and I encourage people to participate. Free meat, get it out there, because these populations must be continually suppressed each year. We don't know how many pigs are out there. It would be great to have some baseline population, then we could measure the effect on that coordinated campaigns and investment have. There are some areas in Australia that have gone out and done night surveys of infrared thermals by helicopters to get background populations data, but we would know that there would be thousands and thousands of pigs in the South Australia region. There could be tens of thousands. I don't know. And we know there's thousands and thousands of deer to the east of us. So yeah, there's something we have to consider, and we have to be very proactive. And as a community, we need to work together to get on top of the feral population. So I've got some flyers here that you're welcome to take before you go. And please ring council by the 15th of September to register your interest, and so we can get the meat audit ready. So, thank you very much.
So you can do bailing in between the coordinated program as well, just individual properties, but also I'm sure if the industry is asking for more coordinated programs, will be council be keen to support that. So just let us know what your thoughts are around increasing the coordinated program. I might just give the Mayor an opportunity now he's arrived to just say a few words.
Well, that's unexpected. Thanks, Councillor Duff. Just want to acknowledge our other councillors are here today. And Councillor Henderson come forward at the council meeting and has raised this issue with us, and we've taken a very strong stance and gone out to the government and approached them about certainly disencouraging people from travelling between these centres. Clearly that's probably not going to get a positive response, but anything that we can do as a council, we'll be 100% on board with. I think we've got unanimous support in our council to do whatever we can to help try and protect our region as best we can. Unfortunately, though, if it was going to happen, it's probably going to come from outside our region. But look, if there's anything we can do, we're 100% here for the community and for the region, and we've got our biosecurity fellows in-house. So please sign up to that program, and as I said, I think we can do, let us know. We are very concerned about it, and not just FMD, but also ASF and also LSD, very concerning if they come to our region. If you are aware of people who are harbouring, hobby farmers particularly, small numbers of pigs particularly, and that tends to be the high risk group, I think. Please let us know in council so we can follow up on that in a coordinated effort with biosecurity. But yeah, look, on behalf of the region, thanks very much to the Ag Network. Alan Broom always does a great job, Alan, for organising this today, and Kathy and the other people involved. And it's good to see such a great turnout of people who are very concerned, and we'll keep getting information out as we can. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to all do the best that we can and pray that this thing doesn't come into our region. So thanks for the opportunity, Kathy.
Thank you, Otto. I've got another question over here somewhere.
Everyone's got a lot of risks in that, but is it not a risk that at the moment there's heaps of animals at the Eka that will be coming back home after being viewed by thousands of people?
Yep.
Is that a risk?
Yeah, well, but again, the Eka have put in place, I understand, some measures for those sorts of areas where the cattle and petting nursery and that sort of thing are. But again, as I said, the risk isn't really on the person, it's on a product. If someone brings in a sausage and throws it to some pigs, then we've got an issue. But as I said, it's only in our nasal passages for 12 hours, so unless they've been to Bali in the last 12 hours, then they front up the Eka and they're breathing virus.
I'd say that's a pretty huge possibility of the Eka.
But as I said, they've got some things in place, so I don't know because I'm not involved with the exhibition, so I couldn't really swear to it. But anything's a risk, but as I said, foot and mouth's in the world all the time, and we haven't had it yet, thank goodness. We've had other areas where we've had a lot of travel, where foot and mouth has been, so just keep our fingers crossed and keep hoping everything goes right.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a question here, Kate. Yep.
So are there any more questions?
Sorry? We've had it 3 times. Last time was 1872. Last time was 1872 cattle in Victoria.
Yeah, John, I think agree with you. The lumpy skin disease seems to be the highest risk.
Yeah.
We've spoken a lot about pigs and deers and things like that, but what about the smaller things like what species of flies problem, what species of mosquito do we need to worry about?
And, they think it's any biting insect for lumpy skin disease, but the main thing is the mosquito is the main one. But any biting insect, which said ticks, buffalo fly, they all bite. And once they bite, they inject the virus.
Is there a particular mosquito like Ross River and dengue is a particular mosquito?
Off the top of my head, I couldn't say. Sorry, but any biting, they think even cattle tick could be an issue, or paralysis ticks. Yeah. Because they bite, they suck blood. Once they suck blood, they ingest the virus, and they have it in their saliva and inject it when they bite again. I don't know, but I mean, we didn't have Japanese encephalitis, and look where it started, down in Victoria. I mean, it was up in Indonesia up north. And the first place that we found it was in Victoria. And then since then it's been South Australia, Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland. So, and there's two types of mosquitoes there, one that likes stagnant, fresh water, and then one that likes crappy water, and once it's in a piggery, they can be the ones continuing it in the piggery. So, you know, it's, yeah, we didn't have it, we got it. Yeah.
John, I just got a question. If you were to vaccinate your cattle, right, worst case scenario, you vaccinate the breeders, does that pass on to their progeny? So you vaccinated the cow and then their calf is going to test positive for foot and mouth or not, or does it stop at the vaccinated animal?
Well, the reason we do vaccination is that you can get protection through the colostrum, but I think that's only short-lived until the calf gets an infection outside. So it's possible it could be positive just after birth, but I don't think it'll stay in the system that long. So it's from the colostrum.
So you wouldn't have to all of the progeny, otherwise it'd be a waste of time to vaccinate the cows if you've got to kill the progeny.
It'd only be the vaccinated animals, so we wouldn't be worried about progeny.
Okay, thank you.
How long does the foot and mouth last in the soil?
Yeah, top of my head I don't, and it's got to be proper organic matter, so that's moisture and all that sort of thing, but it can be quite a while. It is a fairly resistant virus, but at sunlight, humidity, you know, with low humidity, and that kills it pretty quick. I think if you went on that eHub, they probably have that information there. Off the top of my head, I don't have it right on me. Sorry.
I've just got a question. If we, or when we, have a national livestock standstill, how can we expect to be notified?
It will be put out there immediately by radio, whatever. It'll be broadcast. Don't worry, you know, they've got plans in place for that. So all trucking companies will immediately be notified when they've done exercise and see how it goes. But it would be on the radio and everything. If it was that serious, it would be out there. Police would be pulling vehicles up.
John, I've got a question with the AusVet plan, and I know you've recently done some training, and I know local governments, through their local government management, the disaster groups would be involved, if got in. When has Biosecurity Queensland undertaken like mock exercises with local governments and key players and stakeholders of the community so we can be better prepared and know our roles once it does happen?
Over the years, we have done exercises. Like I was a while back involved with the rapid response team. We held exercises in every major city around the countryside, where we involved everybody in that exercise. Brisbane didn't have. We had a different exercise, more involved with the poultry industry. But we also have done other things involving industry itself over time. But it does happen and it does occur. But I understand they are doing something about the disaster management groups shortly, getting information out to them, and I think it'll spread out from there.
You just said before that there was only a few of you in the Kingaroy district, as in yourself and someone else. Are the government going to put on any more people? Because obviously you're very understaffed and you've got a big area to cover.
We've been very lucky at the moment. We've got 4 new staff, so to fill positions around. That's Gympie, Bundaberg, Gayndah, Kingaroy. So we've got 4 new staff. That will probably be all we'll get, but it's been a good start. But don't forget, it's not just going to be involving us. We're the starting point, and then everybody else will be pulled in.
Oh, yeah,
as
I
needed.
realise that. But I just wondered, if you're not keeping up with the stuff that Ned's doing now, how is anyone going to manage when this hits?
Well, we'll have to see what happens when it hits, you know, but as I said, at the moment, there are only the 4 of us and we're getting done what we can get done as we need to, yeah.
I just want to know whether the government, they're going to
so we don't have to look after them.
Well, I could give you an answer to that. If you're a neighbour, shouldn't you be fencing it as well yourself? Yes, there should be something happening, but that's outside my area. Don't forget, it's your place. You know, if the fence isn't good enough there, do something about it yourself, and then, I don't know, you know, it's outside my area. There's nothing I can do about that.
Yeah, well, I've been in discussions with you and parks about exclusion fencing in the national parks to keep their dogs in their backyard and their deer in their backyard. If not, let us get in there and sort it out.
Again, that's not in my area. That's nothing I can do anything about that. But as I said, the only thing to do is talk to your organisations, push it up to the Minister's office. That's about all I can give you. You know, it's a case of I can only do what I'm permitted to do under my powers of responsibility.
Yeah, well, I've been trying to talk to the Minister and the Director General since April last year when he shook my hand and said, I'll be in contact with you in 10 days. And you never hear from them, and you try and get hold of them, and they don't want to return your phone calls. It's always too difficult for them to answer the honest questions.
Well, as I said, I don't handle their calendar. I've got nothing to do with them. If I spoke to them, I'd be breaching our policies. You know, like there's a route you as a voter can go to them a lot easier than I can. I'm an employee, so I'm limited to my structure. So, and that's something like that is outside our remit. That's something that's got to be decided by policy, which means you've got to work on those fellas.
I've got another question from our live stream. Are you expecting local vets to be assessing any of the symptomatic animals, or will it be belong to you?
No, we'll be pulling people in from wherever we need them to do the job. If you can understand, it's not just going to be one place. We've got to every tracing, if they've got animals on that place, will have to be checked and surveyed. So that'll be all trace properties. It'll be all surrounding properties will also have to be surveyed. And as the disease comes up, it's got to spread out. So that's why, you know, if we can get on top of it quickly, we can try and limit it to an area. But because it's an aerosol, it's something that can go a distance. So it won't just be us. It'll be, as I said, disaster management things will come in, and we'll be pulling people and skills from wherever and wherever we can as it ramps up. You know, as I said to you, the one control centre in England was 6,000 people, and that was huge.
Yeah, with all these people flying in and out of the country, why aren't we putting in something like a better standard? Like I know our government's hopeless, but I mean, that's all these diseases come from overseas, don't matter what it is, COVID or whatever. Like anybody that's coming into this country, they shouldn't be allowed to bring anything in, and it'd be cheaper to give them buy them clothes and boots or whatever on the other side of the line. Why aren't we stopping all this sort of stuff straight up? Like we talk about tourism there on local boats and everything. Anybody that goes out of the country, before they come back in, they can't bring anything back with them, and then they go into lockdown for 24 hours, 48 hours. Simple. How low is it got to be out?
Well, that's again, that's a federal thing. That'd be how much money they're prepared to spend against the risk. As I said, we've had foot and mouth somewhere in the world for a lot of time. You know, just about all the time. We've had people coming and going. We haven't got it yet. So it's a risk that's got to be determined, and that'd be something that'd be determined at a federal level. It's not something that I can do here.
Yeah, no, there's no zebra. It's not really much about fight. Zebra draw up paper.
Well, that'd be one. Talk to the organisation, see if they can push something federal in state. But as I said, don't forget, foot and mouth is out there all the time, and we've got people coming and going all the time. Yeah.
So we might take a couple more questions, and then I think Alan's going to talk about, there's a cup of tea out there for everyone. Okay, so any more questions?
Yeah, got one down here.
Just a question from the street here, John. When we got our NLIA a government grant towards its cost. Do you know if there are any grants under the biosecurity program for things like purchasing washeries for property entrances?
Not as far as I know, no. That would be considered your own decision about how you go about protecting your place. So if you want to go that far, you can. As I said, you know, the entry onto a property, you have your area where people go. You know, if someone comes to your place to deliver a parcel, they go to your house. They're your risk areas. Keep an eye on them, and don't let your stock go onto those areas. You know? If you can't do that, well, there's an area you keep an eye on. So it's your decision to look after your biosecurity for those sorts of things. You know, if you limit access to your property, and as I said, those areas that are the risk are your yards, your sheds, fuel deliveries, that sort of thing. They're all people that we'd have to trace if it did happen.
So I think if there's no more questions, we might wrap it up. No more questions? Small question? Okay, right. This can be the last question.
Can it live in water like the animals? No, it needs organic matter. Okay. So water is not, you know, though on the bank, yeah, if it's there in that wet area, yeah. But eventually it will die out, but I think it can last a fair while. But I can't think of what it is off the top of my head.
So I just, last question.
Last question. What's the fine for bringing in contaminated meat?
I got no idea. That's federal regulation. They have increased it recently, I understand, and they're talking about increasing it again. But I think
it's around about the $240.
Well, I think I read...
Now, that is an absolute joke.
But I think I read somewhere that someone was put back on the plane and sent straight back home.
Well, I think they should be. They should not even be allowed to step within the country.
But again, they are increasing it, and they are, said they're putting notification out and everything like that. So there is under discussion right now. It's actually federal.
Because the stupid part of this is, I think you can bring a carton of cigarettes into a country and have the same fine, which is limited problems for anyone, and yet we're talking about an $80 million industry, and you've got a fine of $240. This just does not make sense, and our biosecurity part of all this is just lacking very strongly. We've got companies that keep this out of the country.
Well, I said it's been somewhere in the world for a lot of years and we haven't had it yet. You know, so 60s in England, Vietnam, Asia, all parts of Asia, we've got people moving in and out. So something seems to be working.
I've just got Bruce Webb has just said it was $2,666 for the Big Mac coming in Darwin. Yeah. Sausage and egg McMuffin. So just wanted to thank John for his presentation. Please give him a big round of applause. Also wanted to have a big shout out to Vaido, Alan Broom and Christy Ward and the team for helping to organise this and advertise it and coordinate it, and also our council for their support, and just as I said, as the Mayor said, council is very supportive of, you know, this is, we've got skin in the game. Agriculture is our core business in our region, so we're certainly very, very concerned. So we're prepared to step up any time to work with Vaido. If you want to get more information, just let us know. And so I'll just hand back to Alan, and he's going to tell you a bit about a cup of tea, I think.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. Yeah, and thanks to John, and look, thanks to all of you, you know, for turning up, for taking an interest. And for, you know, it's not easy with some of these questions. I think we're all pretty concerned. It's interesting that I did see, I think, that the federal or the cabinet group that they've got between the Prime Minister and the states, one of the actual items on the agenda today is foot and mouth. So it is at least getting out there. I'd encourage you, you know, John can't answer all of your questions by any means, as he freely admits himself, but you know, if you've got those things, keep that pressure on. Keep it on your grower organisations, keep it on your elected representatives, let them know, because you're the ones out there, you're the ones, you know, we all are, we're directly affected. So, but I think the message today, the whole purpose of this was to try and give you the information as much as we could up to date, and that's why Council and Guido got together to do it. And yeah, I think probably the most important thing, as Kathy said, there's a cup of tea that Christie's organised. It's out in the supper room there, there's an urn and there's some biggies and things, so please, you know, feel free to yeah, grab a cuppa, and thanks again for your attention. We know how busy you are. Thank you.